Okay, here we go. What is going on, everyone? Hope you are doing well. Alex Shinsky here for the Anti-Hustlers Weekly Show. Thank you so much for checking us out every single week. Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, we are live in our Facebook group, the Seven Figure Sales Savages, every single week to provide you with the best and most up-to-date insight on how to grow your agency or coaching program. We're happy to have a super special guest today, Mr. Joe Rare from Level 9 Virtual. Super excited to have him. Before that, Brian Downer's here as always. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing excellent. Thank you for asking.
Oh my God, today he is not living the dream, Joe. Things have changed.
That was for the old show, man. That was the old show. I feel like I don't know what I need to do for this one.
Living the dream was his main comment back to back to back. Mr. Joe Rare, very good to have you. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks.
Dude, so
Glad
excited
to be
to
with
have
you guys.
Appreciate you coming on. A couple quick things about Joe Rare that I just want to touch on before we dive in. Today's show is going to be all about how to break free from the fulfillment trap. Right? It's a very common problem for most businesses where they struggle to hire talent, manage talent, and get out of it. Joe, I would say, is probably the premier expert in this, considering both what his company Level 9 Virtual does and also how he lives his life, meaning he backs up what we're talking about today. The reason why we wanted to have an expert today on this show, Joe, and I wanted to be very transparent about this up front, is, Brian and I both run a very successful company, but I would say it's very important that Brian and I are in the company. That's just the truth, right? It's just the truth. That doesn't mean we don't know what it takes, to get to the level of hiring and delegating fully, but we just haven't done it in the way that Joe has. And I think the interesting element of your business is, you could take a large amount of time off or do literally nothing, it seems, and have amazing success because of the great team that you've built. How has that happened, Joe? Can you explain to us what Level 9 Virtual is and if I'm being hyperbolic or not, or if I'm kind of, down the middle here and it's right?
Yeah. So, so my company Level 9 Virtual is a virtual assistant services company. I think technically I was paying customer number 4 for high level.
Nice.
And so in the earliest days, they didn't have any support. They didn't have a customer service team. They didn't have anybody to support them. So they would rely on a lot of our VAs to actually support them. And, then they'd get, defunct clients and they would leave and we would save them and so forth. And so we got to work really, really close in the very early days and for a very long time. But providing virtual assistant services, it kind of came naturally because I've been doing it so long. I hired my first VA in November of 2008. I launched an e-commerce company way back then. Ran it until 2015, but I had it run 100% outsourced. So I was living in San Diego, I was living in Costa Rica, and I got to travel and do all kinds of stuff that was fun and kind of do the 4-hour work week lifestyle stuff. Once you taste it, it's hard to go back.
Yeah.
And so, then I opened an agency and had an office and had US employees and had that whole thing. And I was very much into running the business. We ran into some financial challenges due to a couple key clients leaving they equated about 40% of all of the revenue. And the company didn't survive. And so I took on a lot of debt to kind of, try and make that work. It didn't work. Closed it down and then realized, like, what am I doing? Like, I was the outsource guy. I was the guy who did everything that I could just to outsource life. And somehow I got into this trap of like going to an office every day. And I'm like, that makes no sense. So I went backwards and said, okay, let me like reset, relaunched an agency, very niche specific, very service specific in one industry. We went from 0 to 109,000 a month in 4 months. We doubled it 4 months later. And then I realized like, oh, this model works. I could probably do this with multiple companies. So we took what was sort of like my pseudo virtual assistant company, which I wasn't really running as a company. I was kind of just helping clients. And I said, let's see if we could scale it with that one. And that one jumped to about $1 million a month in about 4 or 5 months. And it was 6 months. And that one grew really, really fast and kind of eclipsed everything else we were doing. And I thought, okay, if I can do that, I can build anything using this model and have all the free time in the world. So this is something that I aspired to do and then executed on it and then realized that everybody could do it if they choose to. It just depends what you want. And my entire life is based on freedom. So that's why I live in Montana, out in the mountains.
So Joe,
Yeah,
want to
I
ask you
love.
something. I want to ask you something really quick
Yeah.
that I think is just important, like just to be upfront and blunt about, right? Like when we do these shows, I want to get to the meat of it, like right off.
Okay.
And I think what we see a lot of times is people really believe, Joe, like, oh, Joe has a silver spoon. You know, he had some advantage that I don't have. He had more money than I did. My business is unique.
Yeah.
I can't do it this way. What do you say to those people? Because look, man, we know what this is, right? We know
Yeah.
that this is a common thing. Oh, we're going to save you time. You're going to be able to run a business without doing it. But so many people just get stuck here, man. And you know it, right? Like
Yep.
people that you've helped, people that we've helped, they have all the right intentions. They want to grow, but they cannot get out of it themselves. How did Joe do it? How did you do it?
Well, I realized that when I was doing everything the traditional way, the way that everybody says that we should, is like this. I mean, it's to the core of what you guys call the show, the anti-hustler. Like I did it the other way. I worked 15 hours a day. I bled through my eyes and never slept. I didn't see my wife and my kids for, there was this period of time where I felt like it was just passing by. And I made a commitment, and luckily they were super young when it happened, but I made a commitment that I would never miss a single thing in any of my kids' lives whatsoever. And I'm talking not a parent teacher conference, not a recital, like whatever. I would never miss a single thing. And thankfully I've made that happen. But the reality is that if you don't believe that it can happen, it never will. But I've seen the other side of it. I've seen how ugly it can get when you work your ass off and you still don't succeed to the level you think that you could be, or that you could be. And then you take a step back and you go, look, I'm not going to do the hustle lifestyle. I'm going to create systems and processes so that I can have my time back and I can be free. And as soon as you do that and you realize that it's possible, all of a sudden, just this chain reaction occurs. And it's one thing after another. It doesn't matter who you are. Like when I decided to go back to, let me use nothing but virtual assistants. Let me get my time back and my freedom back. I had $267,000 in debt. So over $250,000 in debt. Most people probably aren't even making $250,000 a year. That was my debt. So then when I was like, okay, my back's against the wall, I don't have a choice, but I'm not going to sacrifice my time and freedom no matter what. And it was only 4 months later, we were doing $100,000 a month. The next 4 months we doubled and all the debt was paid off. I had zero debt. Most people don't do that. And so I said, okay, I will never go back there again. So I didn't have a silver spoon. I didn't have a bunch of money that was different than other people. I don't come from a wealthy family or anything else. My dad's a cop. Like he was in the lowest paid workforce in California. He didn't make any money. My mom was a waitress. Like we didn't have stuff, right? You want shoes? Sell shit on the street and figure out a way to buy your own shoes. Like that was that. So we always had food. So I wasn't, I didn't get the immigrant lifestyle where, you didn't have food or you're splitting toilet paper or something like that. But the reality is there wasn't anything special. I just said, fuck it. Like I'm over it. I'm not going back. I'm not doing it the way that everybody else does it traditionally. And that was it. And anybody can do it. Like I'm not overly special.
Yeah, I love that story, and I really appreciate you sharing it with us. Incredible for sure. So I love both sides. I'm very pragmatic, which is why Alex and I are good to work together. He's more the emotional side, and I'm more the pragmatic side. So I would love to know, like,
wait, I'm emotional? Me? No one has ever said that about Alex Linsky.
Yeah,
no
right.
Couldn't be.
Yeah. So on the pragmatic side, because people are probably wondering, like, wow, like getting to $100,000 in 4 months, like. What did you delegate first would be my first question. And the follow-up would be like, what was the hardest thing to delegate? So what was the first thing and then the hardest thing?
So the first thing was the hardest thing, which was giving up what I thought was important and letting somebody else do it. So the simplest thing, checking my email. I don't check my email first. Like somebody checks it, filters it, and makes sure I only look at what's necessary. So that was the first thing is I got out of my inbox. I stopped being in charge of checking my email all the time. That was the very first thing that I did. So the first hire that I always tell people to get is a utility player. Somebody who's going to be like your get shit done VA. They're just going to like all the stuff that you do. You wake up in the morning, you go to your desk, you have all this stuff that you think is important to go through. Nobody gets an email response from me before like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't even think about email that early in the day. And the reason is because there's very little value that's happening inside your inbox on a daily basis. Now, if you're running a promo and there's like, maybe there's something that you need to pay attention to, but on the most part, the stuff that shows up in your inbox is fires, right? And so if we can prioritize those and have my assistant already send the fire to the person that needs to be dealing with it, then it's not my problem, right? And then I can come in and I can look at, okay, what solution has already been created? What steps is everybody taking to go execute and solve the problem, whatever it was? But that was the first thing. All the stuff that you think only you can do, 90% of it, you don't even need to touch. So that was the first thing. And that mind shift was like impossible.
Yeah.
I used to think that,
go ahead.
You know, I was going to say, I used to think that my inbox was sacred. Like it was Joe's space. And now I'm like, dude, if I never have to look at it again, awesome.
Yeah. And that's really freeing mentally to not have that live in your brain all the time, and that anxiety of what lives in that inbox, which I've definitely felt before. We've just moved that over to Slack, but in the same way, we have someone on our team every morning tag every coach in that thread. What are their responsibilities and the messages that they need to respond to, so we don't have to scour through every single channel. So a little bit of the same thing. Real quick follow-up, because I know people are like, how do you get to $100,000 so quickly? So who are you hiring to generate opportunities and then close those deals? Or was it running ads? Like, how did you get there so quickly?
Well, so, I mean, you know, this is going back a few years. So this is back when cold outreach was like, people weren't really doing it as much. But very similar to what you guys have taught through, you know, POD for a long time is so I had my utility player do all that stuff. My job was to sell, right? Number one, companies don't grow without revenue. So I have to create revenue. So I said, okay, all I need is somebody to tee me up into opportunities, get the ball started. It doesn't have to be complex. But what I need you to do is I need you to make contact with the people that we potentially could do business with. Start that conversation. They had a very brief script, get the conversation started. If the person replied in the earliest days, if that person even replied, I jumped in there, took it over, and they were acting as me in the beginning, right? They were acting as me.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And then I step in and I immediately like take over that conversation. I'm going to either close it, then get them on a call and close the deal.
Yeah.
Those were the only things that I cared about. You tee me up into a conversation with somebody to give me their attention and I'll hook them. Then I got busier with more sales opportunities. And then they had to take that conversation 2, 3, 4 steps further on their own, but they watched me do it 100 times. So it was no big deal. They're like, oh my God, this is what Joe says when this happens. And then they just do that and they got better at it and better at it and better at it. So that was how we got the sales side of it. But the problem is sales are great until you need to fulfill the service you just sold.
Yeah.
Which then becomes, okay, well, what do you do? So I said, okay, I'm willing to forego the profit that I would earn by hiring people to fulfill the service. Because I know that when we only have a few clients and I make 0, but they get paid to fulfill services, I know that I can sit down and just close deals. And then all of a sudden the profit goes because now we have scale, right? Because I don't have to hire more people. We just get better and more efficient and I get to sell more. And so now the profit skyrockets. But then I put a fulfillment team together. And then I went through and how to train them and so forth.
So let's talk about the obvious question, Joe, right? So people are interested, right? They like this idea, but then the obvious question is, but where do I hire them? I don't know how to hire them, right? And you have a solution. It's why, thankfully, you are sponsoring the POD Live event in Tampa here in September 7th, 8th, and 9th. Super grateful for that and cannot wait to see you back on stage at a POD event because you crushed last time. Where do people hire from, Joe? How does it work? What do we do?
Yeah, I mean, so the obvious plug is to hire from my company, Level 9 Virtual. We do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. One of the challenges, I mean, look, you can go everywhere and find VAs. VAs are not hard to find right now. They're in abundance. What you're going to run into is the same thing you run into local. It's just going to be a little more challenging if you're hiring virtual assistants, right? It's going to be a little more challenging to vet people. We do criminal level background checks, like FBI level in the Philippines. We do, like, we find out where their parents live, their cousins, their sisters. Like, we get into some like deeper details so that we know more about them than what you would probably be able to go figure out on your own if you snag somebody from Upwork or online jobs or whatever it is that you're hunting for people. But VAs are in abundance. There's a bazillion companies selling VA services. What we've just gotten really, really good at, because I started hiring back in 2008 before this was even a thing. And what we got really, really good at is figuring out how to match personality profiles to the skill set that you're looking for, so that when we actually place somebody with you, they're the right fit for the role. Because it's different, you know, like a lot of people go, I want somebody to build us websites, but I also want them to help and work with my clients. Well, those are two completely different, you know, personality profiles. We have a joke that we always talk about, like with developers, right? Keep the developers in the basement, but all of the people who are going to work client facing, they need to be out in public, right? They're the ones who are communicative and they've got this really, really great personality and they like to communicate. They probably have better English than a developer. They can write better, all those things. And then the next thing would be is stop trying to combine skill sets into one. The unicorns, which some of you guys who own agencies, you are unicorns. You can run ads and build funnels and write copy and communicate with customers and do all of those things. But guess what? Most people can't. That's why you see the person who sits at a job and works the front desk. That's what they do. That's why you see people who maybe have a job in creative and they do creative. That's all they do. They don't also develop things and build apps and all that stuff. So understanding specialization to me is very important. I have always been willing to forego profit in the beginning to build the most effective team so that the profit could skyrocket later.
I love that insight. Joe, one of the things that that you just said that's so impactful is the specialization idea. So many entrepreneurs that, you know, are hell-bent on the idea that their business is very unique and special, which I think blunt reality is it's not. Maybe the 1% maybe are, but you know, majority of them are not. You know, it's like I run a chiropractic agency, Joe, and I do PPC advertising, and we're super unique. Okay,
of course,
super unique. No one does anything we do except the 4,000 other agencies that do exactly what I'm talking about. But one of the things that people use as leverage as to why they don't hire, Joe, is based off of what you're talking about. But if they could do that, why wouldn't they start their own company? Like, why wouldn't they do, as if, running a company isn't incredibly challenging and difficult. Yeah. And it's why a lot of people have a job, because they specialize in it, and I think that's just such a valuable insight to bring up. And so obviously for the plug point of view, it's where would people go to hire someone from your team, and what does it look like to work with you in terms of like where should they be at, what they should be considering, who they should be working with in order to get access to Level 9 Virtual?
Yeah. So level9virtual.com. You can literally, there's a big ass orange or yellow button in the top right corner, book a call. That's the fastest way to get started. You'll talk to our team. They're going to find out what your needs are, and they're going to guide you in the right direction. And one of the coolest things that I've been witnessing over years, right, is our team's ability to actually advise. There we go. Cool. There's me. Advise instead of sell. And what I mean by that is that advising people to do the thing that's best for their business rather than what's going to bring us the most business, what's going to bring us the most money. So as a salesperson, I've listened to sales calls from my team and I'm like, dude, you guys could have hooked the shit out of them, closed them for, 2 VAs, had a higher commission, the company does better. But instead they say, well, no, you should just have this, right? And it was like $397. And I'm like, the fuck, you guys. But what was best for the business? And that's where I'm really, really happy with what our teams does is on the advisory side. So with that said, though, where do you need to be in your business? You can be a rookie, you could be a newbie, you could be brand new, or you could have your own team. It doesn't matter where you are. We have services that should fit pretty much everybody. We start out, dedicated virtual assistants are obviously super high value, right? That is a virtual assistant that works within your business that has a very specific skill set to provide for you. Maybe they run Facebook ads. Maybe it's a graphic designer. Maybe it's somebody who's going to help you with building funnels. Maybe it's somebody who's going to, help you with client onboarding, whatever this specific skill might be. The next thing that we offer is what we call pods. You love that. Projects on demand. I'm hoping if I were to look back long ago, we existed before you did. But I think, actually, I can't even remember, one of the VAs actually came up with it and I'm like, yeah, that kind of works. Great. Go with it. But we didn't cross-reference to see. Although I will use a fun URL to kind of play off of you guys at the POD Live.
Oh,
But anyway,
I'm excited.
so
I'm
our
excited.
projects on demand service is awesome. You buy a block of hours that you can use over the course of a month. You can submit as many tasks as you want. We do all of those tasks over whatever period of time it requires. Everything's run through like Asana. So you get to see everything, be done. You get all your updates. You get to communicate with your project manager. You have a dedicated project manager for it. And then they have a team of people who have every skill set to fulfill the service that you need, the task that you need. So if you need videos edited so you can create reels and start doing social media, we got that. Graphic design, developers, funnel builds, copy, like everything you could think of is all built into one. Everything GHL, we do all of it. From top to bottom, we always have.
Is doing the call free to find out pricing? I have a reason
100%.
why.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you guys are in a place,
The pricing's on the website. Like
Yeah,
we're
if you guys are
super
perfect.
transparent.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
So the reason why I ask is because if someone's in a place like, oh, I can't give up, or I'm not making the money right now, or I can't give up the money I am making because I need that. But getting an idea and of what it costs and putting someone in the bullpen is healthy, because now when you're selling your next client, you can bake this into the cost of doing business. And now you can afford to pay for this with your next client, right? It doesn't have to be
Sure.
something if you can't go out of pocket right now. But I know a lot of you are in a place, specifically people on this call who I know personally, are in a place where they should be putting money down to get more people on the team and grow right now as well. So
Yeah.
Cool.
And so,
go
there's
ahead.
transparent pricing all over the website. Every service that we offer has its own service page and it has the pricing on the page. Like we don't hold anything back. We
Perfect.
don't hide shit. It's all there.
Love it, man. Cool. Thank you for sharing. Cool. That's what we do the plug in the middle, because everyone's still here hanging out. But I want to get back to some maybe of the questions we have, and I want to make sure we answer and cover some of the things we have in our email that we sent out. So I would love to know specifically, how do you set an expectation of work to be done? Is it certain KPIs that you are setting, certain tasks you are giving to someone, and then how are you or a team member holding them accountable to actually doing it, right? It's one thing to say, hey, go do prospecting, but how do you make sure it's actually getting done effectively and optimized?
Yeah. I mean, have your KPIs for sure. I mean, you need to have a mechanism to report. That would be helpful. If you're having somebody especially do something that's numbers driven like that. If it's, you have somebody who's just doing design work or something like that, right? The output is going to be the measurement. Then you can look at efficiency, speed, things like that. And how you hold them accountable is, I think, that you communicate very effectively with them very often. The number one reason that people fail with outsourcing service, the number one reason, 95% of failure, is communication. It's
I
communicating.
think a lot of times they have the expectation that they're just going to go all the way. They can maybe be like 60, 75, maybe 80% of the way there, but you have to help them with that extra 10, 20% across the finish line.
A lot of times, yeah, it's as simple as that. And if you don't communicate and they don't feel like they can come to you and communicate back, you're going to have a terrible relationship. But every time that we've seen, I mean, we've placed over 4,000 virtual assistants with small businesses and agencies. And we've been with High Level since the day they launched live. Like, again, I tried to make a payment and actually sign up for service, and they couldn't even take a payment. That's how long we've been running High Level. And we started immediately all in, let's do it. I moved everything from Infusionsoft into High Level. So like, we've known High Level from day one, and we went through all the growing pains with the platform. So we service a ton of the agency world, simply because of that. But, for you guys, you have to monitor your team. Just like if somebody was sitting right next to you in a desk in an office, you still need to monitor them. You still need to make sure that you guys are having regular powwows and understand what's necessary, what's needing, where's the company going, how are we trying to get there, what's your role to get us there. Their role may be very minute, but if they feel like they're part of the team, they're going to execute at the highest level they possibly can for you. But the moment that they feel like, well, they don't really care about me, I'm just this guy on a computer way over here in the Philippines or something, that makes it very hard for them to stay engaged. So that's where constant on target communication very often is super effective.
Love it. And yeah, one of my favorite stories that Icon Becker had shared with us was a VA he worked with had this dream of having like this gaming computer, right? And he had an agreement where like, hey, if you hit certain KPIs over this period of time, we'll buy you that. And it may seem insignificant to some people, but for this person out of the Philippines, it was life-changing, right? So
Yep.
it was really cool when you can do that for people as well. When, things that here maybe we take for granted mean a lot more to people in different parts of the world. Cool. Alex, you want to take the next one, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. And
I've got
just-
more too. I can,
this
but I
is
don't want to be
such-
rude.
No. It's such good insight what you're sharing, because you're such a no bullshit kind of guy, and like confident in your abilities and what your team does, that it's just like matter of fact. And I wish more people would be open to being less cynical about this and being more open to like legitimately believing it. The thing that frustrates me, Joe, is anytime we do any training related to delegation, anything, right? It's always the same stuff over and over about all the reasons why we can't do it. And, when Brian and I could talk about it till we're blue in the face, and then we have an expert come on and be like, this is real. This isn't bullshit. Like when Alex is trying to get in touch with me, I am snowmobiling for 7 hours. So I got to message him at 10 p.m. at night, because that's when I'm back and I'm taking time off, and I'm not, overdoing it all the time. And people think it's impossible, but it's not impossible, particularly if you're willing to do these things that are absolutely key. I love the frameworks about communication. I think that's absolutely necessary. I want to ask you a question maybe you don't expect to get asked, but what are responsibilities maybe you believe you should never delegate? Is there any responsibility you should never delegate? Is that something you're open to?
So, I mean, for me, I would say, so I consider myself, if I were to give myself a title, it's strategic advisor and investor. So I think that I should probably have a say in where money is directed. Where are we going to put financial resources on a company level, right? I should be in charge of that. I should also be in charge of where I want the company to go, because it's my company. Now, if I want to bring a CEO in and I want to have them be the CEO of the company, maybe I'd let them direct where the vision should pass. I don't know. That's up for debate. But right now, as the company owner, and I consider myself an operator, even though I don't really operate it, it's my vision that's driving my companies the direction that they're going. We just happen to be able to do it with 6 different companies all at the same time, using essentially the same model. And so that, when somebody says, well, you can't do it with my business because it's different, I'm like, well, cool. So I have 6 companies. They're all over 7 figures, one of them being an 8-figure company, and VAs run them 95 to 98% of the way. VAs, people in the Philippines, not local people here, people in the Philippines. And so when somebody says mine's different, I'm like, that's fine, but how could you make your processes similar, so that no matter what it is that you're doing, the same structural process works on the back end? So as an example, virtual assistant company, agency, data supply company, and we have a truck dispatching service company. Truck dispatching has nothing to do with running an agency. It has nothing to do with our data supply company, like none of it. However, the back end of the business, I can pick somebody up from the VA company, drop them into the dispatching company, and they can operate their role.
Epic.
Because the processes are the same across all of them.
So good. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, I got one more question to wrap us up. This is something I've seen a lot of our clients struggle with in particular, and that's just giving it up, like just going and giving it to the team and being okay if they fail, and okay losing clients, and just how do you detach yourself from that and not be so emotionally tied to every relationship that you have?
So are you tied? I guess the question would be, are you tied to the relationship, or are you tied to the revenue that comes in because of that client?
It's for a lot of people, it's probably the latter. Right.
Yeah. Most people it has very little to do with the actual relationship with the client, because if the client bounced and wasn't paying them any money, they wouldn't even know who the client was in the first place. So I always say you have to find a way to detach yourself from the financial side of it. Now, super hard when you're starting out, when the money matters, it's really difficult. And I am not naive to that, right? $260,000+ in debt, every freaking penny mattered. And I paid attention to every dollar of it.
Sure.
The one thing that I knew though, again, future pacing out to where you want to be. How is your team supposed to help your business succeed if you don't allow them to fail. So something that I'm honing in on, and if you guys see any of my content lately that my team puts together, because I don't, I don't touch social media, my team does. But if you see anything, something that is I am really pushing right now is the idea of failing fast. And that goes for me, that goes for my team, that goes for every aspect of the company. Fail. Go fail, learn the lesson. Now, if you don't have the ability to learn the lesson and take it from there, okay, now we have a problem, and maybe this isn't the right role for you. However, if you are willing to go fail, learn the lesson, then go execute based off that lesson, now we have a future together.
I love that.
There is very little times when somebody's failure in that kind of that scope is going to cost you so much money that you can't recover, or that your reputation is going to be tarnished. Like RVAs fail all the time. My rule is fail, learn the lesson, don't repeat it.
Yeah.
Right. And we got to move forward. So hopefully that helps.
I love that piece of insight, because I talk about lowering the stakes, Joe, a lot in business. You know, as someone obviously had, you know, heart surgery at 29 years old, like I don't want my surgeon telling the nurse privately, like, go fail, you know, like go screw this one up. He's just going to die, but the next guy will be good. Right. And the stakes are so low for all of our businesses. And it's not to diminish the value or impact we bring. It's just like, we're not playing with anyone's life or like all of the money that they ever had, or like the most dangerous, diabolical circumstance. It's usually like very small, like things that okay, if you failed, it's like we made a mistake and we'll learn from it and we'll fix it. And it won't be that big of a deal. Some people make it a big deal because people are outrageous a lot of the times, but in general, like that mindset is so valuable. And I think people are clutching at pearls, Joe, when they're running a business. They're like, we can't make any mistakes. It has to be perfect. I'm like, what world do you think you live in? It's impossible. You're going to fuck up. It's just going to happen. And if you're not going to fuck up, 100% your team is going to. It's just part of it. It's just part of it.
If you're trying to control the outcome of every single situation, you're going to have the worst life that there is.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's just not going to happen.
You have no control.
You have the worst business, right? Like,
and your business is going to be awful. Who the hell's going to want to work there when they have to walk on eggshells?
Literally, dude, that's the key. The anti-eggshell model is like what I want it to be. The anti-eggshell. Like anti-eggshell, like transparency is the bridge to communication and vulnerability and growth. Like, and part of that is making mistakes. It's a prerequisite, you know?
Yeah.
There's a couple questions in here, Joe, that I wanted to ask. Here's one from Adam. He said, can I ask a question? Yes, I'm asking it for you. How as a VA can I maximize my output in order to perform better for the team that I'm working with?
Oh my gosh. How can he improve his output?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I mean, I would say that the most important thing is going to be creating space for them to do what they need to do to grow within your company, but also you personally need to grow as their leader. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
One area that I completely bombed and failed in last year was I had somebody on my team who was a pretty heavy hitter in my company. They were super important, pretty high up. And I tried to guide them into a role that wasn't the best situation for their personality and for their growth. I tried to guide them where I thought they should go. And here I am, the leader, guiding them into devastation. And I ended up losing them within the company. The company lost somebody very important within it, because I wasn't listening to their needs and their path that they needed to follow. I missed it. And so I look back and I say, like, what lessons did I get out of this? And what I feel like a lot of us don't get effectively is that we need to constantly learn and get better as leaders every day.
I love that.
As leaders. And we also need to allow our team members to grow in their specific skill set forever at all times. And that could just be something as simple as learning communication. If you have a VA who doesn't speak English exceptionally well, how could you help them get better at English, right? How could you help them get better at communicating or writing or whatever it might be? Give them more opportunity to continue to learn, to continue to excel. And then you have to do the same thing. And if the two of you are growing together, I think that you have you have a better chance of success.
I love that. One thing that you said there that I always like to add is, you know, most of the time we're our own worst enemy. The majority of the time is at least what I see. And there's this mantra and mindset related to like, you know, make a mistake, you learn from it. And then the next time it's just like perfect and you won't make the mistake again. And people punish themselves really badly for making the same mistake twice. And oftentimes they get punished by an employer. But I think it's also okay to have grace and recognize, like, there's a mantra to be said about, hey, like, fail, get the mistake, learn the lesson and be better. But like over time, it's very likely that you might have to make that mistake or trip on the same rock in front of you 4 or 5 times before you realize, because the trips might be not so bad, but then one trip you just destroy your chin because you can't get your hands to the floor fast enough. All metaphors, by the way, guys. You just destroy your chin and you're like, okay, I really got to learn this one now, right? Instead of crushing yourself that, oh, I should have learned this. I tripped on the rock 6 other times. It's like, okay, but like, it's going to happen.
It is. I think partly when people make the same mistake multiple times, it matters what type of mistake they're making multiple times on the same rock, right? Like if you're tripping on the same rock, walking in the exact same direction with the same clear sky, with the same, like, nothing covering it. I think that could be could be something that you need to address. Absolutely. However, if all of a sudden this time they're walking backwards and they trip on the rock, like, okay, great, don't walk backwards, right? Like, I think that making the same mistake multiple times, it has to come with the correct context. Are you doing something different and still hitting in the same roadblock? Absolutely. That's different than just like, well, I did that same thing again and I failed again exactly the same way and it screwed up. Yeah. And now we have,
no like nuance, was that no change?
Yeah. Like, but you learned one lesson and then you hit it again and you're like, shit, same roadblock. That sucks. To me, that's very different.
100% agree.
Yeah.
I love that clarification. So Brian from Overwatch Digital had a question. Brian, I'll give you the floor here. You can unmute yourself and ask.
Great. Cool. Thanks, Alex. Hey, Joe, a couple of things, man. I totally needed to hear this today. And I've booked a call with your agency already. What I wanted to ask about was, you've referenced a system, the same system that built each business. And I was wondering kind of what that blueprint looks like from a satellite view. If you could share that with us.
Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of just touched on it earlier, but the first thing to do is if you're just starting, especially with outsourcing and you want to, build a team, make sure that you can actually free your mind first. So the things that get in your way that just constantly are in front of you is going to be things like your inbox, right? It's all the to-dos and all the fires that are coming up. Okay, let's strategically put them into prioritization of what actually matters. And if most people were to inventory the things that they do on a daily basis, the reality is that most of the stuff you do is not revenue generating. It's not relationship building. It's not going to help you with retention. Most of it is busy bullshit. Like it really, really is. Yeah. We just get stuck in it because it's our bullshit and we think that it's important, right? Got to get this done. Got to look through this. So that'd be the first thing. Get that shit out of your way so that you have a clear mind. Have a goal. What do you want to accomplish? Well, for me, I know I needed to get out of that debt that I was in. So I put in place a prospecting VA, somebody who could do whatever model. If you're following the POD model, that's kind of what I was doing. I just didn't know that you guys were teaching it way back then, but it was almost the same model. And we did that and we did our outreach and then they initiated conversations. I handled sales. On the back end of that, we had fulfillment. I taught the fulfillment team step by step exactly how to fulfill the services to create results for our clients. We did it over and over and over, recorded everything until they could turn around, execute it and teach it. And they documented it in SOPs. And that became what we used all moving forward to teach people how to execute our service, how to fulfill it. Then after that, you get a few people on your team. I need somebody to help me manage the moving parts. So I put an ops manager in place, ops director, right? They were the operations. They were our integrator. So some of you guys know that, right? The visionary and the integrator. I am very much the visionary. I am not going to do all of the things that are necessary to make the company function. I like to create the idea. I like to get the thing started. I want to get the hell out of the way. And what I figured out is that everything typically works better when I'm not around. Like everybody does their job better when I'm not around, which is pretty awesome because it lets us grow when I'm not involved. So you start off with utility player, you get into prospecting. Now you need somebody to fulfill. If I'm still doing sales, now you need somebody to kind of pull it all together into operations. But now if you have a bunch of people and now you have to build relationships with your team and your culture, I put in an HR director, right? And then from there, HR, now we have finance managers who run finance, billing, bookkeeping, all of that stuff. And we just have these different divisions of the company. They're identical in every business that I have. They're identical.
Amazing.
And so these core divisions are how we operate each of the companies. And we only grow to add those divisions when there's enough people to make it worthwhile.
It's great insight.
So I mean, that's a quick explanation of it, but that's kind
It's
of
a great explanation, Joe. It's really good.
I like it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you
I
got
went, if I, one more sec. I retired from an agency, a digital agency that I started in 1998. And we had the whole staff and the whole thing. And this new agency I'm doing is mostly focused on helping veterans, but I decided I would build it lean and mean. I decided to use high level for that. And just do it very, lean and mean so we can price things well. And so I think I might have swung maybe a little too far to the other side of the pendulum because I haven't brought on anybody else officially yet. And I'm feeling it, feeling that kind of stressed monster, but
A good time, Brian, to get on with level 9 for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's time.
Good.
Love it.
Thank you.
Good.
Guys, I just want to say thank you so much. First of all, to Joe Rare for giving us his time and insight today. Really appreciate it. Joe will be sponsoring the event, Prospecting on Demand Live, POD Live, September 7th, 8th, and 9th in Tampa, Florida. We are halfway sold out. We are 100% going to sell out for this event. Going to have 100 agencies there. If you want to join us, you can do so at prospectingondemandlive.com. For anyone watching this live, I'm going to give you a secret code that you can use right now for $200 off your VIP ticket. Are you ready for the secret code, guys? Are you prepared? Here's the secret code. It is secret code. Yes, we did the password as password. So we did secret code, $200 off your VIP. I think it's case sensitive. So it has to all be lowercase. You got to press the apply coupon button. You'll get $200 off your VIP ticket. If you want to come watch Joe speak in person, dude's a genius. Super intelligent. He sponsored one of our events a couple years back and was amazing from stage. Just really awesome to have you come out, Joe. Jenna mentioned earlier, by the way, that she is working with you guys.
Yes.
Because of us. So that's pretty dope.
I just saw that. Thank you, Jenna. What's that?
I love it. That's wonderful. So we can't recommend, Level 9 Virtual enough. We recommend it to all of our clients. Great company, good people, good values, good quality work, which everyone really cares about. But no matter what you choose, right? Just listen to the insight that Joe is talking about. Yes, your business is special and unique, but no, you do not have to be the sole operator of it. And if you end up wanting to be the sole operator of it, stop bitching and complaining that you can't get out of it if you're not going to do the things that you need to do to get out of it. I think that's at least the very minimal thing. Joe, anything else you want to say before we wrap up today?
No, I mean, I guess, yeah, you guys just get the hell out of your business and have some freedom and enjoy life. Yeah.
Amen.
I mean, it's so much more fun when you get to spend time doing the things that you love. So find it. Yeah.
Amen
And I mean, here's the thing. It's available to everybody. Yeah. And if you guys want help, if you guys need some, reach out to us. Let me know how I can help. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
got
Joe.
it, man.
Brian, appreciate you. Everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right,
Cheers,
see ya.
guys. Thank you.